All right. I think the numbers of people joining are starting to die down a little, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Good morning. I am not Kathleen Stacks. Kathleen was unfortunately not able to join us today, so this is Sarah Davis. I'm with Utilicast. I've been supporting Pathways. I'm going to handle the bulk of the meeting this morning. And just a real quick housekeeping item. If you have a question or comment that you'd like to make, please use the raise hand function and we'll get you unmuted. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So today, we've got a few different items on the agenda. We are going to begin with a discussion about where we are with establishing the regional organization for Western Energy that we are calling the ROW. After that, we'll do an update on the formation public board meeting that we'll be holding in February. Moving along, we'll talk about the ROW board selection process. Then we will close it out with updates on the different work streams that we're working on. Next slide, please. Sorry, just a moment. All right. Okay. Uh, the launch committee at the December stakeholder meeting unanimously approved filing the incorporation documents for the ROW with the state of Delaware. That filing was made in January and was accepted on January 21st. So we have our certificate of incorporation. This is sort of step one in a two-part process for fully establishing the ROW. If you are interested, the certificate of incorporation was posted on the Weave landing page. You're welcome to go there and take a look at that. But this is a big milestone that occurred in January, and we just wanted to flag that for everybody. But again, that's part one. So next slide. The final step in establishing the ROW is to file some documentation with the IRS. So these are a series of corporate documents. The four documents that will be filed are listed on the page. It's the Form 1023, also a supplement to the 1023, our bylaws, and our conflict of interest policy. There isn't any new content in these documents. We stakeholdered the bylaws in the fall, and then the content that's contained in the 1023 in the supplement was taken from the Step 2 proposal. These documents were circulated to stakeholders through our distribution list Wednesday evening. They've also been posted on the Weave landing page. So if anyone wants to take another look at these, they are publicly available. But before this filing is made, these documents need to be approved by the formation board. And just as a reminder for everyone, the formation board is comprised of 6 members of the launch committee, and the formation board's sole purpose is to serve in an administrative role to facilitate the formation of the ROW. To approve these documents, the formation board needs to meet, and we'll be holding a public meeting on February 12th. This is going to be a virtual meeting, and the call-in information, the official notice with the agenda will be posted on the Weeb landing page on Monday. We'll also send out a notice to all stakeholders on the distribution list. So just wanted to flag that on everyone's calendar, both verbally, but then we will also do multiple written postings about it. The fifth bullet on this slide is the resolution that will be passed at that public board meeting, essentially adopting these 4 documents and moving forward with the IRS filing. Before we move on to a board selection process update, does anyone have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands, so I think we can move to the next slide. All right. Where are we with the board selection process? So the launch committee has selected Lyceum Leadership Consulting as the executive search firm that we're going to partner with to facilitate and run the board selection process. Our 9 sectors have each selected a representative to serve on the nominating committee, and we had an initial planning meeting last Friday on the 23rd to kick off the process and just kind of do a little planning, identify some milestones. So this effort is now officially underway. A little bit about how we're structuring the process. So it's being broken down into 2 phases. The first phase, which includes development of the role specification and a search strategy for the first board members of the 7-member board, is underway. So that is taking place essentially between now, and we're anticipating that that will likely wrap up the very beginning of April. After that phase is completed, we'll move on to phase 2, which is the active board member search. And again, the timeline, as we've talked about in the past, is we're anticipating still being on track to seat those initial 5 members of the board sometime in July. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, this is just, again, a reminder. I think we talked about this at our December board meeting of who the nominating committee representatives are for all 9 sectors. You will see a sector, well, maybe not a sector, a group at the bottom, the bosser. The bosser does have a representative on the nominating committee, and that is John Hammond from Idaho, kindly filling that role for the bosser. And also, this nominating committee representative list has been posted on Weeb if you want to refer to it there as well. Any questions before we move on to updates on our work streams? Trying to pause a little if any hands go up. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. We can go on to the next slide and the following one, and I'm going to turn it over to Jim Shetler to talk about where we are with funding.
Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Shetler. Just a quick update. We continue to estimate that the implementation effort is going to be about a $7 to $8 million expenditure over the next 2 years. From a budget standpoint, we ended last year with a little over $100,000 in funds remaining. As we look at funding the $7 to $8 million for the next 2 years, as we mentioned before, we have 3 areas of focus. One is, as we've done in the past, donations from stakeholders. Right now, we have firm commitments for about $650,000 in the process of being billed and invoiced. There's probably another $150,000 out there of anticipated contributions. So we're looking at somewhere around $750,000, $800,000 in stakeholder contributions that we should have here in the next month or so. The other area we've looked at is grants, and we have one grant that's been in a process of being provided to us of $150,000, and we believe we have another $150,000 that might be coming. So there's about $300,000 there. So pulling those together with our balance, somewhere around $1.1, $1.2 million we anticipate having, which, based on our expected burn rate, would allow us to continue to fund and continue our operations through mid to third quarter of this year. With that said, that's probably about the best we can do on stakeholder and grant contributions. We have been evaluating debt financing for the remaining portion of the need. We have reached out to a couple of banks who do this kind of thing, and we are in the process of working with them with the concept of having a line of credit through a loan that is taken out by the regional organization. We hope to have better numbers on that next week as to what that might mean. And based on that, then we'll be doing some further evaluation on how to proceed. So that kind of summarizes the funding. Any questions? I don't see any, so I'll turn it.
All right, thank you, Jim. Okay, next we're going to talk about the Tariff Organization Working Group workstream. Next slide, please. So this is really a continuation, building on the foundation that was established during the creation of the Step 2 proposal. We have reconstituted that tariff working group. And so during the creation of the Step 2 proposal, there was some discussion about what the process was going to be for the tariff. Were we going to try to take the existing tariff and separate it and create two tariffs? Just kind of how we were going to address things. What we want to be really clear and really kind of provide a little more in-depth of an update today on this topic. And emphasize that the scope of this work group is limited, and the CAISO and the row tariffs are going to remain integrated. So this work group is not looking at splitting them out and creating two separate tariffs. They will definitely remain integrated through this tariff work group process. Also, too, I think something that's important to note is there aren't going to be any substantive changes made to the existing CAISO tariff. The only objective is to really continue the process of clarifying what that market governance structure is going to look like. Next slide, please. So this slide really just kind of gives an idea of sort of the progression through time, where we started and where we're looking to go. So again, the work being done is really a continuation of past work that started with the GRC. The GRC created joint authority between CAISO and the Western Energy Markets, the WIM, over certain tariff provisions. Phase 2, that was EIM creating joint authority. Then phase 3, moving and extending that model to EDAM in 2023. In 2025, with the Pathways Step 1 proposal, we elevated the WIM authority to primary authority in certain areas. And now with the Step 2, the work that this tariff working group is undergoing is where we're really working to clarify the authority of the regional organization vis-a-vis with the CAISO with respect to the same set of rules. So looking to elevate areas of authority for the row to sole authority. Next slide, please. And to accomplish this, the work group has a few objectives. So the first is providing clarity for FERC oversight. The second is providing clarity for stakeholder processes. We're also wanting to set up a structure that we can use as a foundation for a potential transition to Step 3 at some point in the future. But we're also being mindful of the resource commitments for these potential approaches and those constraints. Next slide. So this lays out sort of the next steps that we are anticipating. And I see a hand and we can pause there. Oh, Thomas, let me unmute you.
Oh, sorry, could you go back 2 slides where it has the arrow and the phase of the GRC change?
Yeah.
Okay, I might have missed that part, but can you just explain a little bit more about what the joint authority means? So, or on the last step, so it says RO sole authority plus CalISO joint authority. Does that mean it's an equal level of influence, or is it that more of the CalISO has like an advisory role?
So it's really trying to carve out the areas where the row has sole authority, CAISO has sole authority, and then the areas where there is overlap between
Okay,
both the CAISO and the
and the
row.
areas where there's overlap is considered joint authority.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
sure. And good question. Lauren, let me unmute you. Whoops.
Think that worked. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Lauren Tenney Dennison, Public Power Council. Thanks, Sarah. And I think you just said this, but I want to make sure I understood what you heard or what I heard about what you said is so the work group is actually going through the process of assigning which sections of the tariff will be under the authority of the CAISO board versus the row. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah. And so it's established that the row is only going to have sole
Be
authority.
quiet. Be
Oop,
quiet.
oop. Um, The row only has sole authority over the markets. So it's taking a look at those market sections and trying to sort of parse which sections apply. There may be some overlap there with certain elements, but really trying to do that breakout. And I'm actually gonna unmute Adam because he might have something to add to that as well.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Adam Schultz from CAISO. I don't have a ton to add. I think you got it there, Sarah, but I just want to clarify, just to be clear, that the step two proposal, I think, is pretty clear that the sole authority over the market policy rules will go to the regional organization as conceived of under step two. I think there are some residual areas that honestly I don't understand all that well. And I unfortunately, Bert Gross, our attorney who's most close to this, is not able to be here today. He's out of office. But these are areas I believe that are around just certain financial issues and corporate issues. It's not related to market policy. It would be under joint authority. I just want to make that clear. The sole authority over the market policy would be with the regional organization.
Thank you for making that extra clear, Adam. I think that's an important point. All right. Oh, Lauren, let me unmute you again.
Sorry, just quick follow-up. I,
Yep.
I muted myself too quickly there. I that's really helpful. And I remember I'm trying to remember the details, but I feel like there was a discussion about in the proposal, including specific, like being, I think the principles are very clear, but there was some discussion about whether there would be like, section 3.5.5 or, getting down to that level of detail. This is something that would be under the authority of the RO. And I think the proposal stopped short of that. Is that the process that is being undertook now? And then I had a follow on about the involvement of CAISO in this process. So I just wanted to add that in before we hear from Adam, because I'm sure he could hit on that too. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lauren. I can take a shot at that one too. And again, I really wish Bert Gross were here to provide some more clarity on this one today. No, I think so part of the challenge and what we're working through is that the way the current applies to test works, it's really at the policy level. It's not at the individual tariff section level. So I think we're trying to work through how those things align. And I'd say it's a work in progress. So yeah, it's a complicated issue. So we're working through how exactly that process will have to work in the future.
Lauren, raise that hand again if you've got additional follow-up. And I know, thanks, good. And I know it's a little clunky with the muting and muting folks, but appreciate the patience there. Okay. I don't see any other hands right now. So let's go back to, great. Yeah, sort of the progression that we're anticipating that this work will take. So uh, looking right now, kind of where we are, we're at this bottom step, kind of that technical work. So the work group, we have extensive technical experience in this work group, working with the tariff and GRC involvement in the past. And, also, as Adam alluded to, we're working very closely with CAISO and the CAISO staff on this because we need to develop a solid approach that's going to work for both entities. So very close coordination and collaboration has been going on. But kind of back to the stair step, we are at the technical work, sort of as Lauren's question kind of teased out, looking at the different sections of the tariff and those that under the market governance, what kind of guidance and work needs to be performed with those. After sort of some of those technical pieces are done, we are anticipating that we will develop some sort of proposal or a paper. This would likely look similar to the GRC Phase 2 and Phase 3 proposals. Then once an approach is developed, the work group will need to bring that back to the launch committee for approval. After that approval is provided, then there will be a stakeholder process. We are sort of in the midst of trying to determine exactly what that shape will look like from a stakeholder process perspective, but there will definitely be a robust stakeholder process that will proceed after that. Following that stakeholder process, then the next step will be for it to go to both the CAISO and the RO board. And at that point, the RO board will be seated. There will need to be some sort of tariff filing, whether it includes any revisions to the structure or sort of other necessary provisions. That will definitely need to go with FERC. And we are anticipating that filing will likely happen sometime at the end of Q1 2027 or possibly beginning of Q2 2027. So that's sort of a high-level overview of how we're anticipating the work to progress from now through early sort of mid 2027. And I'll pause there. That's the last slide on this section for any questions. Thomas, let me unmute you.
Can you
Oh,
hear me? Sorry.
there we go. Yep.
Do you have any dates associated with this or kind of target quarters?
So at this point, I don't know that we necessarily have hard and fast target quarters. Kind of the date that we're working backwards from is that likely tariff filing, Q1 2027, Q2 2027. I will say we are in the process of trying to put some more at least rough dates. Um, with all of our work streams, I think we are anticipating probably having more of that to be able to share at the next stakeholder meeting.
Okay. Sorry, did you say Q1 to Q2 of 2027?
Yes, yep, for the
Okay.
tariff filing. So,
Okay.
yeah, we would need CAISO and RO board approval by that date.
Okay, and this is kind of the final tariff for everything to be complete for the formation of the RO or the ROWE.
Yeah, so so the row won't be live until right now we're anticipating probably January 2028. But we would need to make a tariff filing likely end of Q1, or beginning of Q2 2027 to give enough time for that to work its way through FERC to then kind of hit that January 2028 date for the row to be live.
Okay, thank you very much for that
Yeah,
clarity. That helps.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully a little more to come on kind of a better time estimate roughly of when these different kind of tranches will take place next month. I'm not seeing any other hands. So why don't we go to the next slide? So we've talked about the main four funding or the main four work streams that are active right now are the funding work stream, which Jim just talked about, the tariff, and then we have two others that I will move to next. So the third is the Office of Public Participation. So the work that is being performed now with this work group, we're taking the step two proposal and trying to put together a draft scope of work. Um, we've got a great start with what was envisioned in the step two proposal, but really trying to kind of make this a little more operational and draft an actual scope of work. And the idea is that this scope of work would be provided to the row board once they're seated and would serve as a guide as they begin to create the Office of Public Participation, or the OPP. And again, on to Thomas's question, when is this anticipated to happen? We are hoping that we will have something to present to stakeholders probably sometime in this spring for Office of Public Participation. Then our fourth and final active work stream is our stakeholder process. So kind of the two main areas that we're focusing work right now on are first, coordination with the RIF. The RIF put out a white paper a few months ago, and I think as we noted in our December stakeholder meeting, the launch committee provided supportive comments to that white paper. And part of that white paper was exploring whether or not in specific areas where the RIF might be able to implement some of the changes from the step two proposal into the current stakeholder process. So these conversations are ongoing. Again, we are trying to very closely coordinate with the RIF as they sort of work through their process and determine if some of these elements might be good candidates for early adoption. Then the second portion of this work is we are working with the CAISO on trying to map the current stakeholder process with the process from step two. If we can better understand the overlay between those two processes, that will allow us to identify the components of step two that are going to require additional work. And we haven't resurrected our stakeholder process work group yet that was in place as we were developing the step two proposal. But once this mapping is completed, we anticipate that we will have a better idea just kind of the breadth of the work that needs to be done and have that better scoped. And then we will reconstitute that work group and continue progressing that work forward. Again, rough approximation, we're hoping to have this mapping process complete over probably the next month or two and would anticipate getting that stakeholder process group back up and running probably sometime in the spring as well. And I will pause there to see if there are any questions about Office of Public Participation or stakeholder process work that's going on. Okay, not seeing any hands. We can go to the next slide. And that is really the bulk of what we have to present today. Just kind of wanted to highlight our next monthly meeting will be Friday, the 27th, same time, same place. We also have a formation board meeting coming up that I mentioned earlier. That's going to be Friday, February 12th. The time will be 3 to 4 Pacific, 4 to 5 Mountain, 5 to 6 Central. Again, that will be posted publicly on the Weeb landing page, and we will also send out an email to our stakeholder distribution list, giving everyone just a reminder of when that will be. And again, I think earlier I mentioned it will be virtual. There will be a link, so hopefully that will allow for robust participation and attendance. And Doug Marker, your hand is up. Let me unmute you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
One, you mentioned 4 active work streams, and I wanted to ask about the work stream that have been identified for an operating agreement between the row and CAISO.
So the reason that is not on here, that is still definitely a work stream, but there hasn't been any work on that yet. Some of these other work streams are going to be important inputs to that. So we don't have anything to report because that work in that work stream hasn't commenced yet.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But when that does start to happen, that will definitely be added to the list and we will report out on that progress. But yeah, the reason that that one isn't listed is just because no updates right now, no work there, but definitely more to come. All right, I think our final slide is just where and how you can reach us. So if there are any questions or comments that you would like to share, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find all of our materials again on the Weeb landing page. But I will do a final call for questions, thoughts, comments. And I will try to take an uncomfortably long pause just in case people need a little more time in getting those hands up. All right, hopefully that was sufficient. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Thank you everyone for the time and the questions. We will have more to report out next month and we look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks everyone. Have a good Friday.